Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 156. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. I missed the last night or two, struggling with a voice that went missing. Apparently the voice needed a bit of rest, but now it's partially back here. Not 100%, but we don't need to be 100% to be here. It is Wednesday, the middle of the week, hump day, and on Wednesday we talk Tobago, because we belong to the beautiful twin island republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Tobago is not an afterthought. Tobago is not a hang-on. Tobago is part of our country. So on this lovely Wednesday, middle of the week, we set it aside to talk Tobago issues. And on the front burner of Tobago issues right now is tourism. Green Isles Gardeners says the government can provide subsidies and grants, but it's up to Trinis to learn to be tourists. Understood? Tourist friendly. Understood better. Up to us to learn how to be tourist friendly. I agree. Someone was asking though, on the side of, should the government be at the brunt of restarting the industry? And me personally, my usual view is that I don't want government involved in a lot of things, because I think these things should be up to individuals. Let an individual run their own business, let them be an entrepreneur, let them decide what the market wants. Allow the market forces to be at play here. But the problem with that in this case is that it wasn't the market, it wasn't the entrepreneurs, it wasn't the individual business owners that decided to lock down the place. It wasn't them that decided that to start this pandemic. They had nothing to do with that. And as I regularly talk about when I speak about that, bear in mind, whenever we're talking about this, always keep in mind, it was not the virus that shut down the place, it was the government. The government decided that their response to the virus was going to be to lock down the place. Now, you could say that was the right response. That's up to you. That may be debatable, and as more and more time progresses, it seems like it becomes more and more debatable. But nonetheless, it was the government who locked down the place. So it was the government's fault that people's jobs, people's businesses had to be closed and shuttered. That wasn't on the people. So in this case, if we're talking about restarting industries that were shut down by the government, and the thing is, to restart an industry almost always would have a restarting cost, a cost that would be a bit higher than if it was just to continue an industry that was already going. So in that case, I could agree that the government does have something to pay for people in that case. Green Isle Gardner says, let's take advantage of the publicity from Mark Waynes and Jack Warner. Gerard Kwamina says, but what about the hoteliers who make obscene profits and don't give back to the persons who them? Well, you don't watch the hoteliers like that. You don't watch the hoteliers like that. If you consider that the hoteliers are making too much profit in terms of they're carrying too much money out of your island, then maybe the amount of taxes that these hoteliers are paying to you is too low. But the idea is, you want the hoteliers to be tempted by making a lot of money, because if someone comes to a hotel on your island, they aren't only going to the hotel, they have taxi drivers to pay. The hotel would have to buy local food. That part is kind of on the government in terms of that. Greetings, sir. That part is kind of on the government in terms of that. The government is there to make the best deals in that. They make sure that, okay, the hotel, when it came in, signed a deal that they had to buy XYZ amount of food from local sources or something to that effect. So yeah, you want the hoteliers to make obscene amounts of money, because the more money they make, that means more visitors are coming. And more visitors coming means the more money on the island. How many owing millions in taxes? Well, that's not on me. I don't know that for sure. I beg to differ. Not in Tobago. Not in Tobago in terms of what? Not in Tobago in terms of excited for the hotel coming after Piaco Plaza? Not necessarily. Not in Tobago in terms of what? More visitors does not mean more money for the entirety of the island generally. Is that not true? Because, for example, right now, Tobagonians are very excited for the start of the cruise ship season. And cruise ships, when someone goes on a cruise, the cruise isn't paying a massive amount of money to Tobago itself. That's not how Tobago makes money. Tobago doesn't make money because the cruise decides, okay, we're going to pay 10 million Tobago to just pass and look at Tobago, and then the Tobagonian government is going to take that 10 million and share it up among people in Tobago. No, that's not how money is made. Money is made when the vessel docks in Tobago and these 2,500 people just pour out into the island. These 2,500 people are all going to need taxis. They're going to want to go on tours. They're going to want to look at different things on the island. They're going to want to taste a Benny Ball, a little red mango. They're going to want to buy a little bit of coconut jewelry, something made out of a little piece of reef. That's how the money is made. It's not like it has to be taxed from the cruise ship, given to the government and spread out among the citizens. Just the mere fact that the people are there is how the money would be made. Where government sets standards, hoteliers find ways to bypass the trickle-down profits. I don't disagree that oftentimes hoteliers try to find ways to do that very often. If given the chance, many hotels would attempt to do as all-inclusive as they can. You leave it up to them. They may own the taxi service from the airport to the hotel, so no local gets that. They will attempt to import the food and in fact make their own food import business, and yeah, that's the general idea. They attempt to monopolize everything going straight up the chain. That's how most businesses function. I don't doubt that. But that's where government comes in terms of making good deals to protect local businesses. That's the majority of the job of the small island government. Good night, serviceman. I believe the whole tourism products and allow the smaller business to grow. I don't understand what you said there. You believe what about the whole tourism products? The Green Isle Gardener says they make money from the visitors spending on Tobago. Exactly. That's how they make money. And the type of visitor that comes to Tobago by and large isn't the resort visitor. So if they're like in some of is it Bahamas with some of the grand resorts where someone may literally come to the island and spend the entirety of the time on the island in one resort, one building, one facility. That happens, but that's not generally the Tobago experience. That's not the typical Tobago experience. Nearly no one goes to Tobago to spend the whole time in any hotel. I don't think Tobago has that good a hotel in the first place. That's not the kind of Tobago experience that is even advertised. So the idea is once a visitor enters the island, that is a benefit for the entirety of the island by and large. Once a visitor enters the island. And even in the case of more inclusive hotels where the visitors don't spend as much outside the hotels, or most of the times the hotels are staffed by many local people. Yes, some money would be going out of the island, but nonetheless locals will be paid from that money also. The tourism product needs to be revisited, I see. Okay, I don't doubt that. All right, let's jump into some of these articles and see what's exciting the Tobagonians. All right. Cruise season begins. Tobago set to welcome thousands of visitors. Cruise season commenced today, Sunday, November 20th, with the arrival of Silversea Cruises vessel, the Silver Moon, at the Scarborough port. According to the Tobago House of Assembly's Department of Tourism, this will be the vessel's maiden call, and it's estimated to bring over 1,000 visitors to the island shores. The division noted that guests will be warmly welcomed by a variety of cultural performers, local artisans, and other tourist industry stakeholders. The season is scheduled to extend to April 17, 2023, with a number of maiden calls throughout, including today's call and the Rhapsody of the Seas on November 21st. Yeah. Elation as first cruise ship arrives in Tobago. They were interviewing some of the people that came off of the ship. The terminal building was a hub of activities on Sunday as taxi drivers, tour guides, tour operators, and tourism officials interacted with the passengers. That's the point I was making. Good night, Tyson. Good night, Tyson. That's the point I was making. All that is money distributing throughout the country there, throughout the island. The hub was abuzz with taxi drivers, tour guides, tour operators, and tourism officials. So it's not that the cruise ship has to pay Tobago money and the government splits it up. Just the people being there. That's the whole idea of tourism. The idea of, especially the kind of tourism that Tobago offers, is you just want the people there. The main idea is to just get the people there. That's the main idea. Get them there somehow. And they're getting them there. Tours oversubscribed as cruise ship brings 2,500 visitors to Tobago. This was the second cruise. Over 2,000 visitors arrived in Tobago on Monday morning aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas vessel, the second cruise ship called for the season. Ground transport was one of the challenges experienced by visitors when the cruise ship docked at the Scarborough port. Speaking with Newsday, Secretary of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation Tasha Burris said she was excited by the huge numbers subscribing to visit the island on the port calls. Yesterday I was excited. Today I am even more excited. We had a smaller vessel yesterday, and today we see Rhapsody of the Seas making their first call to Tobago with over 2,500 passengers. She said she went aboard, went on a tour, and spoke with the captain, who expressed his delight and pleasure at being able to call at Tobago because he remembered visiting as a little boy. Do they sell bacon shack in Tobago? I think so. I don't know how popular it is, but I am sure you'd be able to find it somewhere. I'm sure you'd be able to find it somewhere. You know what's interesting? Tyson says, I don't get notifications when you're live, and I have them on. I think that's deliberately for persons like you, seriously. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Sometimes I wonder that. A lot of these apps, they seem to encourage more nonsense than seriousness. They seem to encourage more nonsense than seriousness. But yeah, the tours are there making money for the country. Their main point is just to get more people there. Just to get more people there. And we're already seeing that they are very happy with the increase in numbers that are arriving right now. She said big cruise ships do a lot for the island's economy, giving the examples of busy taxi drivers and heavily subscribed tours on Monday morning. She said Tobago had to sell its charms and encourage visitors to return. We have to ensure that the experience of the visitor is one that would encourage them to keep coming back to Tobago. And that's the thing. I think the more Tobago gets this, the less Tobago has to depend on spending from Trinidad. The more money Tobago gets for itself, that it can spend on even bettering itself. And this... To me, the tourism is one of those really simple, straightforward money transfers. It's not like even the oil industry, where this company sells the oil on the international market, and then it's paid through the government, through the government having to be paid royalties, and then the government has to put some benefits out there in the society, and then we see the benefits of oil and gas. No, not really. It's literally... Tourism is literally, we're going to flood the island with thousands of people wanting to spend money, and all you need to do as a resident here is develop a product that the people want to buy, and the people are looking for things to buy. If if there are enough visitors, literally every person could be employed in the tourism industry. That's the very nature of it. People come to this place as tourists looking to spend their money. They're here wanting to spend their money. I came here with $15,000 and I don't really have much intention of carrying it back. I want to spend the majority of it here. Once you present enough interesting things to me in front of my face, I am going to spend probably every last cent of that money. That's tourism. And you're there as a citizen of this island. All you need to do is provide a product that the people want. And money comes directly to you. There isn't any go-between here. The tourist comes and pays you directly for this. Vice President of Transmax Maxi Taxi Association, Dave Allain, has alluded to the oversubscribed tours. This morning, we actually see we ran out of transport. He said Argyle Waterfall, Charlottesville, Pigeon Point, Storby, and Buku Reef were some of the most sought after tours, and the drivers were excited to take visitors there as well. It's approximately 3 years. We didn't get no business. We didn't get any business. We didn't get any business. Double negative. Can't help myself. So we are elated that we have this kind of business coming in. From yesterday, we feel good. We're getting good business. We'll be very glad if it continues like this. And we believe that once it continues so, we'll be happier in Tobago where tourism is concerned. And oversubscription is a good thing. What oversubscription says is that there's room for that industry to even grow. I mean, you'd expect that over the last couple of years with the struggle that some of those industries would have actually shrunk. Like if you were a regular tour operator in Tobago over the last 2.5 years or so, I mean, there may have been more tour operators than there were people looking for tours. So you might have just, looked to relax and find some alternative occupation. But now, as you're seeing more and more people come out and people are oversubscribed, there are visitors coming off of the cruises that are like, wait, I'm waiting on a taxi. Any taxis out there? And you know what supply and demand does? When demand outstrips supply. Okay, you want to reach Argyle, I reach in Argyle, but there's a different fee. I mean, be honest with the tourism. That's another way to get people to come back. Be a nice, honest, get a nice, honest host. Don't rub anyone. But nonetheless, it's a matter of fact. That's how you make more money. So, oversubscription already seems to be going on over there in Tobago. And it's not totally surprising. It's not totally surprising. There are many cruises already carded for the season. I believe it's 4 in November, Trinidad and Tobago, to welcome 4 cruise ships in November. Trinidad and Tobago, as the tourism sector commences in Trinidad and Tobago, the Tourism Authority has shared the schedule of cruise ship arrivals in the month of November. So 4 cruise ships in November alone. That's a good income for an island like Tobago. That's a good income. And it shows promise across the Caribbean. Let's look into this. Caribbean tourism outpaces other territories post-pandemic. Tourism in the Caribbean has recovered faster than any other destination in the world and has actually sprung into growth mode, experts say. You see, coming out of the pandemic, there would have been not just growth. You can't just grow. You have to recover first. So we were at this level. The pandemic sent us down below that level. When we're out of the pandemic, first we have to recover back to the level that we were at first, and then we could talk about growth. What they're saying is the Caribbean is already on the line carded for growth. We're already passing recovery, which is a good sign. It means we're speeding out of the pandemic. And tourism is a kind of competitive market. That's the nature of tourism. The fact of the matter is tourism is competitive. There are only so many tourists that move around the world, generally speaking, for the year. It's a limited market, believe it or not. So if you could recover faster and go into growth faster, you may be able to capture a bit of the market that maybe you did not have even pre-pandemic. You may be able to capture a larger share of the market than you even had before. You may be able to appeal to people who may not have once considered your location as their prime travel location, but now, with you being the fastest out of the blocks after the pandemic, that might actually be very promising in capturing something a little extra. President of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourist Association, Nicola Madden Gregg, gave an update on the region's performance at the latest Jamaica Chamber of Commerce quarterly report on business and consumer confidence held last month. The Caribbean has recovered faster than any other destination in the world. For quarter 3, we were up 3% over the 2019 numbers for the same period. And 2019 was what we call the record year in tourism, Greg told the meeting. So 2019 was a record year, and for this year, the Caribbean is already up from that record 2019 year. Ainsley says, but do we offer tourism here? While outside we are known for drugs? Think of it. I mean, I understand the dark outlook, but we aren't talking about if we offer tourism here. We know we offer tourism here. I understand that, yes, there are bad things here, and yes, there are drugs here, but we are also widely known for tourism. It would be dishonest of us to say that the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago, by extension, isn't known for tourism. All we are known for is drugs. That's blatantly dishonest. And we are talking about the numbers as being described by hotel and tourism associations. Yeah, these aren't just numbers that people are wondering about if it's true, if it might be, what could be, what should be. These are numbers that are already being shown, that are being displayed. We are getting these numbers back already. And it shows that for the third quarter, we are already exceeding the rates that we were at in 2019. But our policies here are far too old. Investors run from us. I understand all of that. And maybe this is the opportunity for us to change it. But to say that somehow our policies are old, so that does not make it true that we are rebounding well, is not true. It's being shown. We are growing, we are rebounding well. I don't understand why someone, it could seem like someone would argue for the fact that we aren't doing that well. No, we are not. Don't listen to anyone. We aren't doing that well. No. There are some areas we are doing well. Yes, there are things that we can and should do to capitalize on that. Yes, agreed. But to make it seem like there's no hope in no area, nowhere in anything in the country is not true. While total international inbound for quarter 3 was still down 39%, with the Americas down 24%, the United States, US down 31%, the Middle East and Africa down 19%, and Asia Pacific down 72%, the Caribbean was up 3%. I don't know what you're talking about. The Caribbean was up 3%. So America's down 39%, US down 31%, Middle East and Africa down 19%, Asia Pacific down 72%, the Caribbean is up by 3%. There are companies that ask, do we have gay rights? We say no, they leave. And what's the matter with that? Qatar has an entire an entire World Cup, and they don't have that same thing. So I don't understand what is the point you're trying to make there. Like, what is the relevance of that to tourism? We're talking about tourism here. Someone was making this point on gay rights, as you say, gay rights here. You could be lost in understanding this because of your intake of popular culture. But numerically, the majority of the world is not pro-gay rights, numerically. There are 8 billion people around that in the world. More than 50% of those people are not pro pro-gay rights. So even if you think it to be a good thing, a morally upright thing, it is not something that is the norm to look at somewhere and like, oh my goodness, it's so strange that they aren't for this. No, that is actually the norm. You want them to change. If you want them to change, that's on you. You could want someone to change for that. But you must understand that's what you're saying, that you have a new view of something that you want someone to change their view on. So I don't understand what is the point you're trying to make there. Yes, there are companies that refuse to invest in Trinidad and Tobago for various reasons. I don't know that there are many companies that would not invest in Trinidad and Tobago because of our stance on gay rights. That is not something that Trinidad and Tobago is notoriously horrible in. I wouldn't doubt that there might be though. But I don't understand the relevance of that in terms of tourism. I don't get that. All right. The projections for the last quarter of 2022 are also looking quite good, she said. For Q4, quarter 4, projections on the books, we are pacing quite well. It is looking like we will be up 15% in the Caribbean over 2019. So we have shifted from recovery into growth. And that's really quite significant, Madden Gregg, who is also a director at the JCC, said. Some have, however, questioned whether the region can sustain the current rate of growth. She said, the answer we will give is definitely yes, noting the Caribbean is well placed to continue on the path of growth and outpace other regions. A lot of this growth is being driven by the US market, yes, but we still have Canada, the UK, and Latin America, which has not fully recovered, she said. She continued, we anticipate that as a region, both the Caribbean and Jamaica will be able to retain the business that we have gotten out of the US market. The addition of new airlift options has supported international arrivals, but regional travel is still lacking, she said. So the anticipation is that the Caribbean, not only we are growing, but we will be able to continue this growth. And that is actually an important thing when considering that. Did you see what Inshan said on Soon Honorable TikTok? No, I did not see what he said, no. Hey, have to run. Talk to you later. No problem. Thank you for joining in, Jared Komena. Appreciate it, bro. But yeah, and that is actually very important when you look at the aim that Tobago is saying they have. Up till pretty recently, Tobago was saying that one of their aims in tourism is to attempt to offer a more Caribbean-wide unified image and a unified product. Tobago Tourism's next big hope on Monday. This is an article from Thursday, the 10th of November, so understand the dates as they say them. Tobago House of Assembly Secretary of Tourism and Culture and Antiquities, Tasha Burris, put forward a great idea. Addressing tourism stakeholders at the World Travel Market 2022 in London, England, Ms. Burris called for the Caribbean to be marketed as one destination. They talk about multi-destination tourism, she said. That is something Tobago can begin to benefit from. It might seem counterintuitive to suggest islands that compete for tourist dollars come together to attract visitors. And while we are close geographically, life could not be further apart. Tobago is not the same as Barbados or Jamaica. Each has a different history and culture. Each has something unique to offer. And in theory, each attracts different market segments. Though there are cruise ship connections, hopping between the islands is also not straightforward, especially if traveling by air. Each nation has its own entry requirements, but there is strength in numbers. Ms. Burris makes a good point when she notes the Caribbean is competing against other destinations that work as a block. We're competing against destinations in the Pacific, competing against destinations in Asia, competing among destinations like Hawaii, for example, she said. When we look at what we can do individually, it's not as much as we can get together and collectively sell the Caribbean as a region. Green Isles Gardner says, I don't see how that works unless they can have some festival or something that changes location. I do see how that works. The main problem, though, is that the ease and cost of travel between islands in the Caribbean is prohibitive. The Grenadian Prime Minister was speaking about that just this week going here when the TTMA, Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, they held some kind of award ceremony, and they had the Grenadian Prime Minister there. Good night, Charles. And he was speaking about that. He was saying that the cost and ease of travel between the islands is prohibitive. It's difficult. He is the Prime Minister of Grenada, and that's the only reason he was able to travel from there to Trinidad, because other than that it would have taken him a week to travel from Grenada to Trinidad. He would have to take a flight to Miami and then from Miami to Trinidad. The only reason he could have gotten a direct flight is because he had the security, the Eastern Caribbean Security Services jet or something like that, a security something like a kind of military something for the small islands. He had access to that. That's the only reason he could have traveled direct, and that's the problem. Even among Caribbean citizens, the population in the Caribbean, many of us would have gladly spent our tourist dollars among other Caribbean islands. But right now, it's around 60% in some cases of the airfares just raw tax. The governments are ensuring, as it were, that it's too difficult to travel in between the islands. And if it was something that was as easy as, per se, in Europe, how easy it is to travel in between Europe, and it's just 100 US, 150 US, 200 US even price to reach from one island to the next. Then a lot more people would have done it. And I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers they would have to overcome if you want to offer the Caribbean as a multi-destination package. So yeah, you could go to Jamaica, you experience something, and for $150 you go to Barbados, for $150 more you go to Trinidad, for $120 you travel in between Trinidad and Tobago, and that doesn't seem ridiculous. But if I travel to Jamaica, and for me to go from Jamaica to Barbados is going to cost me 800 US or 1,000 US or something ridiculous, and take me a week of traveling, there's no way I am going to go on a vacation and plan to go in between those two islands as part of my vacation. That's not going to happen. That's what needs to happen if they want this to work. And I think it is a good idea, because we're looking around now and we're seeing the Caribbean is on the upward trajectory. As a whole, the Caribbean is showing growth in tourism coming out of the pandemic. So we might be able to snatch up some of those extra markets that weren't available at one point in time. We may be able to snatch them up, but we have to be able to offer something that makes sense. If we cannot offer something that makes sense, then who is going to bite? Who is going to take the offer up if it doesn't make sense? You're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay a prohibitively high cost if you want to reach from one island to the next. Then you're just going to take one island at a time. And even beside the fact that the Caribbean on a whole is showing upward trajectory, Tobago itself recently, I was seeing turtles take Trinidad and Tobago to top tourism tier. The ecotourism activity of turtle watching has taken TT to the ranks of the top 25 best of the world destinations for 2023, as named by National Geographic, said a recent statement from the Tourism Trinidad Limited. That's one. The next one, Tourism Tobago in second place as most desirable island at Travel Awards. Tobago is racking up accolades at the World Travel Market in London. The island won silver in the most desirable island, rest of the world category at the 2022 Wanderlust Reader Travel Awards hosted in November. So, in terms of raw product, on the global stage, the raw product that we have, it has desire. It has desirability. It's not something that nobody wants. Is that for a period or segment of the year? Well, yeah, it's for a period, for this year. or a huge threat. And Ainsley says, what's your take if there is common currency in the Caribbean only? I don't know. Like, it would make for a lot of things easier. If there is a common currency between the entirety of the Caribbean, a lot of things would be a lot easier. Now, there would be some challenges with that. The bigger economies would be more easy, or it would be easier for the bigger economies to kind of bully the smaller economies. That's one. And the next thing is, if it's one currency, is it to be controlled by one central bank? And listen, central bank controlling currency is not a fun thing. It's not a fun thing. Like, if it were a currency like gold coins that has individual value on its own, and then we all use gold coins, then grand. I'm all for that. But us all using a currency that may be controlled by the central bank of the Caribbean, which is headquartered in Trinidad and Tobago and is overseen by some kind of shady characters, you know what? Let's stick to our individual money. Let's stick to our individual money. That looks like it would cause some bacchanal in the long run, real quick. Some bacchanal is going to ensue from that. But with the fact being that our tourism products, our ecotourism, that's what they said, our turtle watching, that's something rare, that's something appealing worldwide. The Tobago is rated as number 2 in island destinations. That's something worth noting. And what that suggests to us is that the raw product that we have in terms of tourism, especially looking at Tobago, is something that has value. People like it. People want it. The case is, how best do we get it out there? As they were noting, I think, and I do agree, that tourism, not necessarily not every aspect of society, but in particular tourism, I think it would make sense to offer a wider multi-destination something. The Caribbean working together much better. It's, if people that went to Europe could have only visited France, and then the cost to go from France to Germany is so ridiculous that it makes more sense you go home and you only visit France once and finish. Then the whole idea of a Euro trip would not have existed. But why can't there be a Caribbean trip, and not just on a cruise vessel where you island hop on a cruise ship? No, you're taking a Caribbean trip. You're going and you're starting at Jamaica and you're going to island hop all the way down to Trinidad, and then you leave. That's something you see, the market we're appealing to is a different one now also. I'm sure there are people who would be very, very interested in something like that. Something where they could start at Jamaica and come all the way. Listen, I think some local Caribbean people will be very interested in that. Ainsley says, exactly, from Paris to London is £50. Cheap. Every Sunday I will be in London. Well, exactly. If it was £50 from Trinidad to Barbados, well, people would have gone over for the weekend. We would have gone over for the weekend, have a weekend in Barbados. But that's the problem. The cost that it's at right now, nobody is going to use it, so then nobody makes any money from it. And that's part of the problem. I was reading a professional in the tourism industry was making that point. He was saying that many of the governments have those taxes there, attempting to make money off of the tourism industry. But the taxes are so high, they're so prohibitive that people don't come. And if people don't come, then if you tax 100% of zero, you still get zero. Exactly, Wendell. Not only you, especially the millennial generation and younger, they are very interested in traveling. This generation is a traveling generation. how many people of older generations had a house, a car, and a whole lot of other assets before they ever left Trinidad and Tobago? Before they even left Trinidad to go to Tobago, probably. But some in the millennial generation have already traveled to 10, 12 different countries and don't even own a car. It's just different priorities. So if you offer something where it's something that this generation would be interested in, I think they will jump at that offer. I do think that would be a tempting offer for this generation. Something that could be looked at in that sense. Brad Pitt said, life is just death and taxes. Meet Joe Black. It could be a lot more than that. It could be a lot more than that. All right, folks. All right. This was the Tobago night. Tobago talking about Tobago, especially in terms of tourism and the Mindful Live session. You know, my voice is now in recovery mode. Let's not push it too far and let it knock out again. Is that a kitty in the background? No. What you heard in the background is my daughter, not a kitty. This is her time. If Nisi, one of the usuals in the live, if she was here, she would have let you know that this is around her time to start making noise. Exactly around this time every night, she lets her presence be known. So, I'm gonna go say hi to her too. Yeah. All right. Thank you, folks, for being here. This was the Mindful Live session, Tobago talking about Tobago issues. I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live, which would be tomorrow, starting around 9:15 p.m., between 9:15 and 9:30 thereabouts. Those are the times I am on, and I will see you guys then. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. Until then, by the way, you could head over to my YouTube channel, Nathan Springer, over there on YouTube. Catch all of the Mindful Lives if you ever miss any. And this one also would be over there. And other videos too. Until tomorrow. See you guys.